everybody, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be sewing a fabric basket. Fabric baskets are super fun and easy to make, and you can sew one even with cutting out your fabric in under 30 minutes. Well, let's get started. We begin by ironing and cutting out our fabric and also the fusible fleece that we're going to be using on the outer layer. And on the fusible fleece, I do like to cut it about 1/4 of an inch smaller all the way around. Now we're going to be preparing our fabric to make our gussets. And I like to make my gussets for the larger size at 2 inches. And be sure you're cutting on the fold. And now repeat the same process on the lining fabric. And now we're going to prepare the fabric to sew our side seams. On the lining fabric, be sure to mark an opening where we're not going to sew, approximately 2.5 to 3 inches. And now we're going to sew the side seams, but be sure to not sew the opening closed. Do not sew in between your drawn lines. And I like using 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And also be sure to back stitch at the beginning and the end of your stitching. And now remove the pins, and then we're going to prepare the fabric to close the gussets. And now we're going to close the gussets by sewing with approximately 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And also be sure to back stitch at the beginning and the end of your stitching. And now it's time to remove our pins, and then we're going to turn our lining fabric right side out. And then we're going to match our side seams. I'm going to pin, but you can also wonder clip. And now we're going to sew all the way around using about a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And now what I like to do is trim any threads if needed, and then we're going to pull the bag right side out. And then it's time to push out the corners. What I like to do is I just use my finger, but if you like to, you can also use a turning tool or even a chopstick. And now we're going to sew the opening closed. You can either hand sew or machine sew, and I chose to do the machine sewing today. And then it's time to iron. What I like to do is use my little mini ironing board. For smaller projects, it's super handy. And as you can tell with the way it looks, I use it a lot. And now we're going to top stitch all the way around with approximately 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And also the basket, you can also fold down and make a little border on there, or you can even turn it out the other way because it is reversible. And you can tell it's a small basket, but look how much it holds. I'm putting some 5-inch squares and some fat quarters. And I've also linked in the iCard the video on how to cut your own 5-inch square. It's normally called a charm pack. Thanks for watching, everybody. Happy sewing, and see you next time.